In the ruins of a battlefield where fog moves like a living shadow, a weary soldier stands face to face with a wounded dragon, both hunted by the same ruthless empire. Enemies yesterday, forced into alliance today, they carry a secret so powerful it could either heal the world or end humanity forever. Every choice they make in the darkness will decide who survives and who falls. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video, and tell us in the comments where are you watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. The fog hung heavy across the abandoned battlefield, curling around broken steel and shattered machines. Darian Kale stood alone, his pulse rifles slung low, the last warmth of battle still humming through the armor on his shoulders. His once proud suit of the Metro Guard now looked battered and worn, etched with scars from wars that stretched across continents. He had survived more campaigns than most men lived to see. But tonight, survival was not certain. Before him loomed a figure larger than any tank, a beast half born of flesh, half forged from engineered metal. The dragon was named Sorith, though Darian did not yet know it. Smoke curled from its nostrils, carrying the acrid scent of burnt circuitry mixed with something older, something primal. Its silver-blue blood dripped from wounds along its side, glowing faintly in the dim light. It had been hunted, just as he had. They faced each other in silence, both trembling, both exhausted, both unwilling to lower their guard. Darian's visor flickered, the targeting system trying to lock onto the dragon's chest, but his hand hovered over the controls without committing. He knew the ascendancy, the corporate empire that commanded him once, was watching through his helmet. Every breath, every movement, broadcast back to their servers. Killing this creature would mean loyalty. Sparing it would mean treason. Sorith's voice rumbled through the air, deep and strange, as though a choir of human tones mixed with something mechanical. You should strike me down, soldier. The ascendancy rewards those who return with proof of victory. Darian's laugh was low and bitter, like stones grinding underfoot. And when I hand you over, they'll cut you apart. Then they'll cut me apart too. I've seen what happens. They take what they need and discard the rest. His words tasted like rust. Heavy with truth he had carried too long. The dragon's amber eye narrowed, studying the human who should have been its executioner. Then why stand before me still armed? It asked. Because 3 hours ago I would have killed you, Darian answered, pulling free the broken helmet that hissed as pressure released. His scarred face came into view, one eye brown, the other a pale machine lens, glowing faintly in the mist. Now I'm thinking about treason. Funny how fast things change when you see the truth. The fog thickened, moving like it had a mind of its own, curling against his legs. The silence stretched until the distant thrum of engines shattered it. Hovercrafts, search drones, the ascendancy was sweeping the area. Darian felt the hair rise on the back of his neck. They would not stop until both he and the dragon were erased. Sorith's chest heaved, each breath sending out clouds of steam that glowed faintly in the dim light. You saw the laboratories, it said at last, its voice both mournful and edged with steel. You know what they are doing to my kind. And to mine, Darian replied, reaching into the side compartment of his armor. He withdrew a small device, no larger than a card, blinking with a weak blue light. This is the receiver. They were watching me until I shut it off just now. He tossed it onto the ground between them. Without hesitation, the dragon lowered one massive claw and crushed it, sparks dying beneath its weight. The bond formed in that instant was fragile, more like a crack in the wall between enemies than true trust. But it was enough. Searchlights cut through the fog in the distance. The hum of machines grew louder, closer. The Ascendancy's hunters were here. Darien slung his rifle across his back, scanning the tree line. "I have a safe house north of here," he said, his voice steady but urgent. 11 miles. It's hidden from scanners." Soreth shifted, wincing as one wing dragged along the G. "Torn and useless. I cannot fly. Their weapons took that from me first." Darien cursed under his breath, then nodded. "Then we walk, or you crawl, whatever it takes." The dragon lifted its head high, despite the pain, its pride refusing to bow. "We stride," it said firmly, even though its steps trembled. Darien almost smiled. "Stride then, but keep up. We don't have time." Together, they turned toward the shelter of the forest. Fog swallowing them both as the first drone beams swept across the battlefield behind them. The alliance was uneasy, stitched together by necessity and sharpened by distrust. Every step forward was a gamble. Every breath carried the risk of betrayal. But the soldier knew this. The corporation wanted the dragon alive, and him erased. The dragon knew this. The human had glimpsed secrets too great to ignore. Their paths had collided in fire and blood. And now they were bound by something more dangerous than trust: survival. As the trees closed in, the engines roared louder, the light of search drones painting the mist in harsh white. Neither spoke again. Both carried thoughts too heavy for words, and in Darien's pocket, unseen and unspoken, a hidden data chip pulsed faintly with the rhythm of the dragon's heart. The uneasy pact had begun. The forest pressed close around them, branches dripping with mist, as Darien Kale and the dragon Soreth moved deeper into the shadows. Every step was heavy with exhaustion, yet both forced themselves forward. Behind them, the distant hum of drones echoed like the beating of war drums. The Ascendancy would not give up. They never did. As they pushed through the undergrowth, Darien's mind returned to the past, to the briefing rooms of polished steel and glass where his doubts had begun. Years earlier, he had stood in formation with other soldiers of the Metro Guard, their armor gleaming, their faces carefully blank. At the front of the room stood Director Marovic, the man who spoke of progress as if it were scripture. "The Seraphim program has entered Phase 3, Marovic had said, his voice calm, his eyes sharp. After countless failures, integration between human neural patterns and draconic physiology has finally succeeded. Behind him, holographic displays shimmered into view, schematics of hybrid bodies, streams of genetic data, and images of dragons with implanted devices lit the walls. To most soldiers, it was dazzling. To Darien, it was horrifying. He remembered the way Marovic smiled, cold and precise. "You are the chosen," he had said, his tone dripping with false pride. "Your combat experience, your loyalty, your discipline, all make you ideal candidates for ascension. You will not remain mere soldiers. You will become something greater." Darien had kept his face expressionless, but inside unease grew. He recalled the silence that had followed Marovic's words. No one dared to speak, though the air itself seemed heavy with dread. When one soldier had asked what ascension truly meant, Marovic had simply replied, "The chance to rise above the weakness of flesh." But Darien had already seen too much in the labs. He had glimpsed the cages where dragons writhed under chains of steel. He had heard their cries as scientists cut into living flesh, pulling memories from their blood as if it were data. Those were not invaders. They were beings with minds, with histories, with pain. The memory haunted him now as he trudged beside Sorith. "You knew," the dragon's voice rumbled, breaking through his thoughts. "You saw the experiments." Darian did not answer at once. He pushed a branch aside, scanning the fog for movement. Finally, he said, "Yes, I saw. They told us you were enemies, that you came to destroy us. But in those labs, I learned otherwise. You were brought here with promises of cooperation. They lied to us both." Sorith slowed, his massive body weaving between trees that should have been too narrow for his bulk. "Our kind came as refugees. Our world was dying, and we carried our knowledge encoded in our blood. Your ascendancy saw not lives, but resources. They wanted what was hidden within us." Darian glanced at him. "Knowledge stored in genes. I heard whispers, but never the full truth." The dragon's amber eyes glowed faintly in the mist. "Each of us is born carrying fragments of memory. Histories, sciences, even technologies from worlds long gone. We do not forget through stories alone. We inherit truth through blood." Darian's steps slowed as the weight of those words sank in. He had always suspected the corporation's goals went deeper than simple warfare. Now he understood. "They want it," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "That knowledge, they want to unlock it, to twist it into weapons." Sorith lowered his head slightly, steam rising from his nostrils. "More than weapons. Within me lies a sequence they hunt above all else, a design, ancient and powerful. It was meant to heal, to reshape dying worlds into places where life could thrive again. But in their hands, it becomes something else, a tool of extinction." Darian stopped walking, staring at the dragon. "You're saying you carry a weapon in your blood?" "Not a weapon by design," Sorith corrected, "but a creation with the power to change the nature of life itself. In the right hands, it could restore broken lands, heal poisoned oceans, even save a dying planet. In the wrong hands, it could erase humanity in a single generation." The forest seemed to grow colder around them. Darian's chest tightened. For the first time in years, he felt the edge of fear, not for himself, but for the world. The hum of search drones echoed faintly again. He shook his head, trying to steady his thoughts. "So that's why they won't stop. It isn't just about control of dragons. It's about control of life itself." Sorith let out a low growl, not of anger, but of acknowledgement. "You see now why they hunt me. Why they will tear apart anything in their path. I am not just prey to them. I am a key, and once they hold that key, no one will be safe." Darian's fists clenched. He remembered Maravik's words, that cold promise of ascension. Now he knew what it had meant. Soldiers were never meant to rise. They were meant to be consumed, just as the dragons were. They reached a small clearing, the trees opening to reveal the faint shimmer of water flowing over stone. Darian crouched to drink, his reflection fractured in the rippling stream. Behind him, Sorith lowered his head, his breath warming the air. "You know what this means," Darian said quietly. "You and I, if we are caught, they win. And if we fight together, we are marked as traitors. Better traitors than slaves, Sorith Rep." The soldier nodded, wiping water from his face. In his chest, the hidden data chip pulsed faintly with the same rhythm as the dragon's heartbeat. He said nothing of it. Some truths were too dangerous to speak aloud. The mist swirled thicker around them, carrying the sound of distant engines. The ascendancy was closing in, their machines sweeping ever wider. Darian stood, rifle in hand, and looked at the dragon beside him. For the first time, he felt not just distrust or necessity, but a flicker of something more, an understanding that their fight was no longer about survival alone. It was about the hidden truth and the choice of what to do with it. The forest grew darker as night fell. The uneasy alliance held, bound now by more than desperation, bound by the secret that could decide the fate of worlds. The hidden truth was no longer buried. It had taken form, and it would not be forgotten. The march through the forest was slow and tense. Darian Kale led the way, rifle slung across his chest, eyes scanning for movement. Behind him, the dragon Sorif moved with effort, his heavy claws dragging across the damp soil. Each step left deep impressions in the earth, and every breath carried a low rumble of pain. The broken wing hung at an unnatural angle, torn by the precision of corporate weapons. After hours of silence, the trees thinned, giving way to a valley where an old hydro plant stood against the base of a mountain. It was a forgotten place, built decades earlier, abandoned when newer technology made it obsolete. Rust clung to its steel doors, and broken windows reflected the last light of day. For most, it was nothing but ruin. For Darian, it was survival. "This is it," he said, his voice low, almost drowned by the sound of water spilling through the turbines. "Safer than the forest, safer than open ground, at least for tonight." Sorif narrowed his amber eyes at the structure. "You call this a safe house?" "Safe enough," Darian replied, moving toward a side entrance. "The ascendancy maps don't show it. They think this facility is rubble. They'll search the woods and the skies. Not here." The dragon ducked low, his massive frame squeezing through the opening with a groan of metal. Inside, the chamber was vast and echoing, its concrete walls damp with decades of seepage. Trickles of water ran down the sides, feeding into shallow pools that shimmered under the faint glow of emergency lights Darian had reactivated years ago. Darian set his rifle down and worked quickly at a control panel. To his relief, the ancient circuits responded. Security screens flickered alive, showing the dark forest outside. No drones yet, no sign of pursuit. They had bought themselves a little time. Removing his armor piece by piece, Darian laid it carefully on a tarp spread across the concrete floor. Each segment clicked against the others, a machine built for war now resting like discarded shells. Beneath, he wore only a dark compression suit, soaked with sweat and stained with blood. His skin bore a map of scars, reminders of campaigns that had taken more than they had given. Sorif lowered himself onto the ground with effort, his claws scraping against stone. Darian approached him with a medical kit, holding it loosely in one hand. "I'll need you in one piece if we're ambushed," Darian said simply. "This isn't kindness, it's necessity." Sorith's breath came out in a slow hiss. "Do what you must." Up close, the dragon's wounds were worse than they had appeared in the forest. Scorched holes burned through the scales, revealing a strange melding of flesh and machine. Wires glimmered faintly beneath torn tissue, pulsing as though alive. Darian cleaned what he could, sealing burns with foam and covering gashes with binding mesh. "You're not just natural," Darian muttered, almost to himself. The dragon's eye shifted to him. "And you are?" it asked, gaze lingering on the pale prosthetic lens that glowed faintly in Darian's scarred face. "Your kind replaces what is broken. Mine carries the past in our very blood. Where, then, is the line between born and made?" Darian said nothing. He focused on the wounds, his hands steady even as his thoughts twisted. When the silence grew heavy, Sorith broke it. "You asked about the truth of my blood. It is time you saw it." A section of scale shifted on the dragon's chest, opening like a panel. Inside, faint light glowed, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. Symbols and sequences moved across a living display, patterns that resembled strands of DNA, but carried layers of meaning beyond human comprehension. Darian stepped closer, his jaw tight. "What is this?" "Our genetic memory," Sorith answered. "Knowledge stored and passed down. Within me lies a design created long before your ascendancy. It was built to change worlds, to turn barren ground into fertile land, to make poisoned air breathe again. It was not meant as a weapon, but the ascendancy would use it as one." Darian's chest tightened. "A weapon that rewrites life?" Sorith lowered his head slightly. "In the wrong hands, yes, they could erase entire populations. In the right hands, it could heal worlds." The soldier turned away, pacing across the room. His mind burned with the weight of what he had heard. This was more than treason. This was standing at the edge of something that could reshape existence itself. Before he could speak, an alarm crackled across the old screens. Shapes moved in the forest, faint and quick. Drones. Darian rushed to the controls, watching as the machines swept closer in tight formation. "They're coming," he muttered. "Not just drones. They'll have strike teams behind them." Sorith's claws flexed against the concrete. "Your safe house may not be so safe, after all." "It's not the house that's safe," Darian said, crossing to the far wall. He brushed dust from a panel, pressing a sequence until it clicked open. Steel slid back, revealing racks of weapons, explosives, and gear. "It's what I keep inside it." Sorith's gaze lingered on the arsenal. "You've prepared for betrayal?" "Not betrayal," Darian said coldly. "Inevitability. The ascendancy uses people until they're spent. I've lived long enough to know my expiration date was coming. Now I have options." He loaded a modified rifle, the weapon heavy but steady in his grip. The sounds of the drones grew louder outside, their hum echoing through the walls. "We can't stay here," Darian said, his voice hard with resolve. "We'll be trapped." "Where do we go?" the dragon asked. Darian turned toward the floor, brushing away grime to reveal another hidden panel. With a code entered, the concrete shifted, retracting to reveal a dark current of water flowing beneath the facility. Down, the drainage tunnels lead to an underground river system. It's off the Ascendancy's maps. The drones outside drew closer, their search pattern tightening. Red lights flickered across the security screens. Darian checked his rifle one last time, his voice steady. "Hope you can swim with that wing." Sorith bared his teeth in something close to pride. "Dragons adapt." The alarm shrieked, the walls vibrating as the enemy closed in. Darian met the dragon's burning gaze, and together they prepared to vanish into the shadows below. The safe house had done its part. Now the darkness would decide their fate. The floor of the safe house opened with a groan of rusted gears, revealing the black current of an underground river. The roar of drones outside grew sharper, beams of red light sweeping across the walls. Darian Kale did not hesitate. He slung his rifle across his back, looked once at the dragon beside him, and leapt into the water. The current was freezing, biting through even the layers of his suit. Moments later, Sorith plunged after him, the splash shaking the stone chamber above. Together, they were pulled into the tunnels, swallowed by darkness. The water dragged them far below the surface world. Darian fought to keep his head above the current, armor weighing him down. He glanced sideways and saw Sorith's bulk cutting through the stream, his injured wing pinned tight against his body. The dragon moved with surprising grace, using his tail to guide them through the twisting channels. After what felt like endless minutes, the tunnel widened into a cavern. Glowing fungi clung to the walls, casting blue light across the water. Darien dragged himself onto a ledge, pulling off his helmet to breathe. Droplets fell from the cavern ceiling in slow rhythm, the only sound besides their labored breathing. Sorith heaved himself from the river, claws scraping the stone floor. He lowered his head, amber eyes glowing in the dim light. "We have time. The ascendancy will not follow this far underground." Darien's voice was hoarse. "Don't be sure. They've mapped every city, every mountain. It's only luck this place has stayed hidden." He set his rifle beside him and leaned back against the stone. The cold of the water still clung to his skin, but his mind was sharper than ever. He thought of the revelation Sorith had given him, the genetic code that could heal or destroy. The choice weighed heavier than his armor. The dragon studied him in silence before speaking. "You do not trust me fully, but you trust me enough to risk your life beside mine. Why?" Darien let out a rough laugh. "Because I've seen the truth. The ascendancy doesn't care about soldiers or dragons. They care about control. I'm tired of being their tool. If fighting with you means hurting them, then I'll take that risk." Sorith shifted, the light from his chest panel flickering faintly beneath scales. "You understand the danger of what I... Within me lies the power to reshape life itself. In the right hands, it restores. In the wrong hands, it ends." The soldier's jaw tightened. "And what do you plan to do with it?" The dragon's gaze did not waver. "Hide it, protect it, never let it fall into their grasp." Darien's mechanical eye glowed faintly in the cavern light. "Hiding only delays the inevitable. Sooner or later, they'll find another dragon, another piece of the code. Unless..." He stopped, his mind racing with the possibility. "Unless what?" Sorith pressed. "Unless we use it," Darien said. "Not as a weapon, as it was meant. To heal. To prove it can save, not destroy. If people see it restore land, restore air, they'll see it's more than a tool for extinction." Sorith considered the words, his expression unreadable. The cavern seemed to hold its breath. Finally, the dragon spoke. "Perhaps. But such a choice carries weight beyond either of us. Once revealed, there is no turning back. ... Their conversation was cut short by a distant hum. Darien stiffened, grabbing his rifle. The sound grew louder, bouncing off the cavern walls. Drones. Somehow, impossibly, the ascendancy had tracked them even here. Sorith rose to his full height, though his body trembled with pain. "They will not stop until one of us falls." Darien's thoughts sharpened in an instant. He knew the drones could not be allowed to capture them. His armor, still active, continued to broadcast signals to the ascendancy, even muted. Every moment it stayed on him was another trail leading the enemy closer. The first drone appeared in the cavern, its red eye glowing like a predator in the dark. Darien fired, the shot echoing in the stone chamber. Sparks rained as the machine fell into the water. More followed, their beams slicing through the shadows. The soldier fought with precision, every round measured, every movement honed by years of combat. But for each drone he struck down, another appeared. The cavern echoed with fire and steel, the air thick with smoke and heat. In the middle of the chaos, Darien made his decision. He tore off the chest plate of his armor, ripping cables free, sparks biting into his skin. He pulled out the transmitter core, the device that fed the ascendancy his every move. Without hesitation, he smashed it against the stone, shattering it into pieces. The glow of the drones faltered. Their movements grew erratic, as though cut off from a guiding signal. Darien's chest burned with pain, but his voice was steady. "No more chains, no more watchers. They can't follow me now." Sorith struck the last drone with a sweep of his claw. sending it crashing into the water. Silence followed, broken only by the drip of the cavern. The dragon lowered his head to meet Darian's eyes. You severed their hold. Now you walk as a true traitor, and yet also as something freer. Darian caught his breath, looking at the fragments of the transmitter at his feet. Freedom always costs. I've paid mine. Now it's your turn. Sorith opened the panel in his chest once more, the glow stronger this time. From within, a small fragment of genetic code appeared, encoded light shifting like living script. He extended it toward Darian. The piece of what I carry, Sorith said. Knowledge enough to heal, to rebuild. I trust you to decide how it will be used. Darian took it, the light burning against his palm. In that moment, soldier and dragon were no longer enemies, no longer allies of convenience. They were keepers of a secret that could change the world. The underground river flowed on, dark and endless. Together, they turned toward its depths, their path uncertain, their bond unspoken. The choice in darkness had been made.